I was first, no one can prove otherwise.
All right. Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back for some more reading. Let me do little hellos. Hello, Gazan. Welcome, welcome. I hope your cooking has been going lovely. I hope you're making tasty, tasty foods. Of course, hello, Lucian. I hope you're also doing well. Thank you for stopping in, saying hi. I see Chatty has said that they are the first one instead, and no one can prove otherwise. But hello, Riku, welcome. Thank you for the resub, my goodness. I appreciate the Prime resub. Welcome, I hope you're doing well. Today, the plan is to finish reading Winnie-the-Pooh, since we only have 5 more chapters left in the book. And we read 5 last time. I will, sorry, Soba wanted attention for a sec there. I'm thinking this time when I read, though, I will, instead be reading it all in the same voice, so I don't forget which voices I'm doing halfway through reading. No? You don't want that? Oh. No, I hope he doesn't hear that dog. Oh no. Soba. Shh, this is a calming, relaxing stream, Soba. Otherwise, happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome in. I hope y'all have been well this week. And you're ready to just relax and chill. Oh, yeah, let me get the book. Specifically, let me get my iPad. I have the ebook. Let me get that up. Oh, Soba. I'm gonna have to cut that out later. Yeah, this little guy. Such a silly little thing. Alright, let me just, I need to check one thing real fast. And then we should be good. Okay. 'Tis done? Oh! What did you cook, Kazan, if I may ask, before we get started? I need to also switch the music anyways. Hold on. Oh, that is not... No one heard that. Looks like I'm gonna have to get some editing on this specific VOD later, but that's okay. Chow mein. Nom 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 nom. I know you have sent me pictures before, and it looks tasty. You must be like master at this point. Okay, let me just get the rain back up. To adjust the sound slightly. Okay. Go for it. I might have to take a look at it after, but I always like to see food pictures. I should learn to take more pictures of things I cook too. Just to have like for reference, or just to have for later, you know? Alright, I have the music change up. Let me just quickly type out the little heads up message for anyone who comes in later. Oh, it cannot send. What happened to Discord? Oh my goodness, is that my homie? Oh my good, 28 months. It feels like no time at all. Hi, homie. I hope you're doing well today. Welcome in. Hi, Mino. There's always more. There's always meaning in life. I'm just part of it. I hope you're doing well. Discord is being stinky, Gazan. What the heck? You've never had issues before. Silly Discord. With the... So I love you so much. I'm trying not to like scream. I'm trying to be very calm since this is supposed to be a cozy stream, but... I love you. Here's to many more years though, my homie. No, you amazing. What the heck? What the heck? My goodness, what is life? Y'all so sweet to me. What the heck? Let me post this and pin it so everyone can see this for later, for those who come in when we do start reading. I'm dispending the most uncommon thing in your DMs. I'm excited, but obviously no rush. Story. Ah, thank you, thank you. I do very much look forward to it though. But yes, just so I mention it one more time before we do start, I did do a quick pin just so people can kind of see it for the reading. And when I start reading, if there's any follows or raids or anything like that, I won't acknowledge it in chat. I will be reading chat, but I won't be able to acknowledge it till the end of the chapter, just because I don't want to interrupt in the middle of the chapter to disturb it in any way, since we chilling out today. I will also, for this reading, I will read everything in like a kind of a similar voice for like an my goodness, English is hard. For like an audiobook kind of dealio, if that makes sense. And then at the very end of stream, I won't be raiding out, only just to kind of keep the cozy atmospheres, because I don't want to risk potentially raiding into something that's more chaotic or wakes people up or anything like that. Since this is kind of a thing just to fall asleep to, potentially. You know, to make this cozy? No, that would not be very cozy. The last thing I have to do is I have to turn off, hold on. I need to quickly just turn off chatty for this stream and all the sound effects, guys, just so we don't get a meh in the middle of it. Alright, that should be good. Perfect. But hello, Kofti. I forgot to say that. Hi, I hope you're doing well. Welcome in. And without further ado, let's get into a little bit of our reading of Winnie-the-Pooh. Oh, for anyone who wasn't here for the first chapters, we are starting chapter 6 in a second here. I have put the first VOD up on YouTube at this time. So feel free, it's not edited or anything, it's just straight uploaded like this one will probably be. So feel free to access it if you would like at any time. Otherwise, let's continue reading some more Winnie-the-Pooh. Chapter 6, in which Eeyore has a birthday and gets 2 presents. Eeyore, the old grey donkey, stood by the side of the stream and looked at himself in the water. Pathetic, he said. That's what it is. Pathetic. He turned and walked slowly down the stream for 20 yards, splashed across it, and walked slowly back to the other side. Then he looked at himself in the water again. As I thought, he said. No better from this side. But nobody minds. Nobody cares. Pathetic. That's what it is. There is a crackling noise, and the bracken behind him, and out came Pooh. "Good morning, Eeyore," said Pooh. "Good morning, Pooh Bear," said Eeyore gloomily. "If it is a good morning," he said, "which I doubt," he continued. "Why? What's the matter?" "Nothing, Pooh Bear, nothing. We can't all, and some of us don't. That's all there is to it." "Can't all what?" said Pooh, rubbing his nose. "I gave it to you. Song and dance. Here we go round the mulberry bush." "Oh," said Pooh. He thought for a long time and then asked, "What mulberry bush is that?" "Bon homie," went on Eeyore gloomily. "French word meaning bohomie," he explained. "I'm not complaining, but there it is." Pooh sat down on a large stone and tried to think this out. It sounded to him like a riddle, and he was never very good at riddles, being a bear of very little brain. So he sang Colston Pie instead. Colston, Colston, Colston Pie. A fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Colston, Colston, Colston Pie. That was the first verse. When he had finished it, Eeyore didn't actually say that he didn't like it, so Pooh very kindly sang the second verse to him. Coltison, Coltison, Coltison Pie. A fish can't whistle, and neither can I. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coltison, Coltison, Coltison Pie. Eeyore still said nothing at all, so Pooh hummed the third verse quietly to himself. Coltison, Coltison, Coltison Pie. Why does a chicken? I don't know why. Ask me a riddle, and I reply. Coltison, Coltison, Coltison Pie. That's right, said Eeyore. Sing, Umpty Titty, Umpty Too. Here we go gathering nuts in May. Enjoy yourself. I am, said Pooh. Some can, said Eeyore. Why? What's the matter? Said Pooh. Is anything the matter? You seem so sad, Eeyore. Sad? Why should I be sad? It's my birthday, the happiest day of the year. Your birthday, said Pooh in great surprise. Of course it is. Can't you see? Look at all the presents I have. He waved a foot from side to side. Look at the birthday cake, candles, and pink sugar. Pooh looked, first to the right and then to the left. Presents, said Pooh. Birthday cake? Said Pooh. Where? Can't you see them? No, said Pooh. Neither can I, said Eeyore. A joke, he explained. Pooh scratched his head, being a little puzzled by all this. But is it really your birthday? He said. It is, replied Eeyore. Oh, well, many happy returns of the day, Eeyore. And many happy returns to you, Pooh Bear. But it isn't my birthday, said Pooh Bear. No, it's mine. But you said many happy returns. Well, why not? You don't always want to be miserable on my birthday, do you? Oh, I see, said Pooh. It's bad enough, said Eeyore, almost breaking down, being miserable myself. What with no presents and no cake and no candles and no proper notice taken of me at all. But if everybody else is going to be miserable too. This was too much for Pooh. Stay there, he called to Eeyore, as he turned and hurried back home as quickly as he could, for he felt that he must get poor Eeyore a present of some sort at once, and he could always think of a proper one afterwards. Outside his house, he found Piglet, jumping up and down trying to reach the knocker. Hello, Piglet, he said. Hello, Pooh, said Piglet. What are you trying to do? I was trying to reach the knocker, said Piglet. I just came round. Let me do it for you, said Pooh kindly. He reached up and knocked the door. I have just seen Eeyore, he began, and poor Eeyore is in a very sad condition because it's his birthday, and nobody has taken notice of it, and he is very gloomy. You know what Eeyore is, and there he was. And what a long time whoever lives here is answering the door. He knocked again. But Pooh, said Piglet, it's your own house. Oh, said Pooh. So it is, he said. Well, let's go in. So they went in. The first thing Pooh did was go to the cupboard to see if he had quite a small jar of honey left. And he had. So he took it down. I'm giving this to Eeyore, he explained. As a present, what are you going to give? Couldn't I give it too? Said Piglet. From the both of us? No, said Pooh. That would not be a good plan. All right then, I shall give him a balloon. I've got one left for my party. I'll go and get it now, shall I? That, Piglet, is a very good idea. It is what Eeyore wants to cheer up. Nobody can be uncheered with a balloon. So off Piglet trotted, and in the other direction went Pooh, with his jar of honey. It was a warm day, and he had a long way to go. He hadn't gone more than halfway when a sort of funny feeling began to creep all over him. It began at the tip of his nose and trickled all through him and out at the soles of his feet. It was just as if something inside him were saying, "Now then, Pooh, time for a little something." Dear, dear, said Pooh. I didn't know it was as late as that. So he sat down, took the top off his jar of honey. Luckily I brought this with me, he thought. Many a bear going out on a warm day like this would never have thought of bringing a little something with him. And he began to eat. Now let me see, he thought, as he took his last lick of the inside of the jar. Where was I going? Ah, yes, Eeyore. He got up slowly, and then suddenly he remembered. He had eaten Eeyore's present. Bother, said Pooh. What shall I do? I must give him something. For a little while, he couldn't think of anything. Then he thought, well, it's a very nice pot, even if there is no honey in it. And if I wash it clean and got somebody to write a happy birthday on it, Eeyore could keep things in it, which might be useful. So, as he was passing the 100-acre wood, he went inside to call an owl who lived there. Good morning, Owl, he said. Good morning, Pooh, said Owl. Many happy returns of Eeyore's birthday, said Pooh. Oh, is that what this is? What are you going to give him, Owl? What are you going to give him, Pooh? I'm giving him a useful pot to keep things in, and I wanted to ask you. Is this it? Said Owl, taking it out of Pooh's paw. Yes, and I wanted to ask you. Somebody has been keeping honey in it, said Owl. You can keep anything in it, said Pooh earnestly. It's a very useful like that. And I wanted to ask you. You ought to write happy birthday on it. That was what I was going to ask you, said Pooh. Because my spelling is wobbly. It's good spelling, but it wobbles. And the letters get in the wrong places. Would you write a happy birthday on it for me? It's a nice pot, said Owl, looking at it all around. Couldn't I give it to, from both of us? No, said Pooh. That would not be a good plan. Now, I'll just wash it first, and then you can write on it. Well, he washed the pot and dried it, while Owl licked the end of his pencil and wondered how to spell birthday. Can you read, Pooh? He asked, a little anxiously. There's a notice about knocking and ringing outside my door, which Christopher Robin wrote. Can you read it? Christopher Robin told me what it said, and then I could. Well, I'll tell you what this says, and then you'll be able to. So Owl wrote, and this is what he wrote. Hippy pappy, boofoo def, foof def, boof de. Who looked on admiringly. I'm just saying a happy birthday, said Owl carelessly. It's a nice long one, said Pooh, very much impressed by it. Well, actually, of course, I'm saying a very happy birthday, with love from Pooh. Naturally, it takes a good deal of pencil to say a long thing like that. Oh, I see, said Pooh. While all this was happening, Piglet had gone back to his own house to get Eeyore's balloon. He held it very tightly against himself so that it shouldn't blow away, and then he ran as fast as he could to get to Eeyore before Pooh did, for he thought that he would like to be the first one to give a present, just as if he had thought of it without being told by anybody. And running along and thinking how pleased Eeyore would be, he didn't look where he was going, and suddenly he put his foot in a rabbit hole and fell flat down on his face. Bang! Piglet lay there, wondering what had happened. At first he thought the whole world had blown up, and then he thought that perhaps only the forest part of it had. Then he thought that perhaps only he had, and he was now alone in the moon or somewhere, and would never see Christopher Robin or Pooh or Eeyore again. And then he thought, well, even if I'm in the moon, I needn't be face downwards all the time. So he got cautiously up and looked at him. He was still in the forest. Well, that's funny, he thought. I wonder what that bang was. I could have made such a noise from just falling down. And where's my balloon? And what's that small piece of damp rag doing? It was the balloon. Oh dear, said Piglet. Oh dear, oh dearie, dearie, dear. Well, it's too late now. I can't go back, and I haven't another balloon, and perhaps Eeyore doesn't like balloons very much. So he trotted on, rather sadly now, and down he came to the side of the stream where Eeyore was, and called out to him. Good morning, Eeyore, shouted Piglet. Good morning, little Piglet, said Eeyore. If it is a good morning, he said. Which I doubt, he said. Not that it matters, he said. Many happy returns of the day, said Piglet, having now gotten closer. Eeyore stopped looking at himself in the stream and turned to stare at Piglet. Say that again, he said. Many happy... wait a moment. Balancing on 3 legs, he began to bring his 4th leg very cautiously up to his ear. I did this yesterday, he explained, as he fell down on the 3rd time. It's quite easy. It's so I can hear better. There. That's done it. Now then, what were you saying? He pushed his ear forward along his hoof. Many happy returns of the day, said Piglet again. Meaning me? Of course you are. My birthday. Yes. Me having a real birthday? Yes, Eeyore, and I've brought you a present. Eeyore took down his right hoof from his right ear, turned around, and with great difficulty put his left hoof. I must have that on the other ear, he said. Now then. A present, said Piglet very loudly. Meaning me again? Replied Eeyore. Yes. My birthday still. Of course, Eeyore. Me going on having a real birthday? Yes, Eeyore, and I brought you a balloon. A balloon, said Eeyore. Did you say balloon? One of those big colored things you blow up? Gaiety, song and dance. Here we are, and there we are. Yes, but I'm afraid. I'm very sorry, Eeyore. But when I was running along to bring it to you, I fell down. Oh dear, how unlucky. You ran too fast, I expect. You didn't hurt yourself, little piglet. No, but oh, Eeyore. I burst the balloon. There was a very long silence. My balloon, said Eeyore at last. Piglet nodded. My birthday balloon? Yes, Eeyore, said Piglet, sniffing a little. Here it is, with many happy returns of the day. He gave Eeyore the small piece of damp rag. Is this it? Said Eeyore, a little surprised. Piglet nodded. This is my present, he replied. Piglet nodded again. The balloon? Yes, replied Piglet. Thank you, Piglet, said Eeyore. You don't mind my asking, he went on. What color was this balloon when it was a balloon? Red, he replied. I just wondered. Red, he mumbled to himself. My favorite color. How big was it? About as big as me, replied Piglet. I just wondered. About as big as Piglet, he said to himself sadly. My favorite size. Well, well. Piglet felt very miserable and didn't know what to say. He was still opening his mouth to begin something and then deciding that it wasn't any good saying that when he heard a shout from the other side of the river, and there was Pooh. Many happy returns of the day, called out Pooh, forgetting that he had said it already. Thank you, Pooh. I'm having them, said Eeyore gloomily. I brought you a little present, said Pooh excitedly. I've had it, said Eeyore, who had now splashed across the stream to Eeyore, and Piglet was sitting a little way off, his head in his paws, snuffling to himself. It's a useful pot, said Pooh. Here it is, and it's got a very happy birthday with love from Pooh written on it. That's what all the writing is, and it's for putting things in. There. When Eeyore saw the pot, he became very excited. Why, he said, I believe my balloon will just go into that pot. Oh no, Eeyore, said Pooh. Balloons are much too big to go into pots. What you do with a balloon is you hold the balloon. Not mine, said Eeyore proudly. Look, Piglet. As Piglet looked sorrowfully around, Eeyore picked up the balloon with his teeth and placed it carefully in the pot. Picked it out and put it on the ground, and then picked it up again and put it carefully back. So it does, said Pooh. It goes in. So it does, said Piglet. And it comes out. Doesn't it? Said Eeyore. It goes in and out like anything. I'm very glad, said Pooh happily. Though I thought of giving you a useful pot to put in things in. I'm very glad, said Piglet happily, that I thought of giving you something to put in a useful pot. But Eeyore wasn't listening. He was taking the balloon out and putting it back in, again and again, as happy as could be. And didn't I give him anything? Asked Christopher Robin sadly. Of course you did, I said. You gave him, don't you remember? A little, and gave him a box of paints to paint things with. That was it. Why did I give it to him in the morning? You were so busy getting his party ready for him. He had a cake with icing on top and 3 candles, and his name in pink sugar and... Yes, I remember, said Christopher Robin. And that's the end of chapter 6. I apologize, I didn't expect it to be that long. Hello, Spindra. Thank you. If you guys are still here, hello. Thank you for the raid. I really appreciate it. My goodness, let me give you a proper shout out now. you've been well. I really appreciate the raid and the follow, and for you bringing your community to me here today. I don't usually do a lot of reading streams, so I do apologize for the kind of weird not being able to say anything or acknowledge it right away. But also thank you, Riku, for the follow-up as a little reminder. You are also just chatting. Well, like a little quick intro, I guess. My name is Meliora. I am a member of Prismaria in the Mountain District. I like art. I sometimes stream my art. A lot of older JRPGs, such as the Tales of Xeno, Suikoden, and such. Especially Xenosaga, Xenogears, and Xenoblade. And today we're finishing off a subathon reward where I promised to read Winnie-the-Pooh for everyone. Again, thank you thank you for so much for the raid and the follow, and also I see the late net. I did see it for a little bit. If anyone is still around, please feel free to sit back and relax, since all we're gonna do is some reading for today to finish off the Tuesday evening. I'm just gonna have a quick. I have some tea. I'm gonna have some quick sips of it before we start the next chapter. Just so I actually didn't expect chapter 6 to be that long. But also, if there's any issues on stream you guys see or hear, such as the sounds being too loud or anything, please do let me know. I will try to adjust those right away. Thank you for the hydrate, Riku. Right. Let's continue. Give me one sec. Alright. Chapter 7, in which Kanka and Baby Roo come to the forest and Piglet has a bath. Nobody seemed to know where they came from, but there they were in the forest, Kanka and Baby Roo. When Pooh asked Christopher Robin, "How did they come here?" Christopher Robin said, "In the usual way, if you know what I mean, Pooh." And Pooh, who didn't, said, "Oh." Then he nodded his head twice and said, "In the usual way. Ah." Then he went to call upon his friend Piglet to see what he thought about it. And at Piglet's house he found Rabbit. So they all talked about it together. "What I don't like about this," said Rabbit. "Here we are. You, Pooh, and you, Piglet, and me, and suddenly, and Eeyore," said Pooh. "And Eeyore, and then suddenly, and Owl," said Pooh. "Yes, and Owl, and then all of a sudden." "Oh, and Eeyore," said Pooh. "I was forgetting him." "Here we are," said Rabbit very slowly and carefully. "All of us. And then suddenly we wake up one morning, and what do we find? We find a strange animal among us. An animal of whom we have never even heard before. An animal who carries her family about her in her pocket. Suppose I carried my family about me in my pocket. How many pockets should I want?" 16, said Piglet. 17, isn't it? Said Rabbit. And one more for a handkerchief. That's 18. 18 pockets in one suit. I haven't the time. There was a long and thoughtful silence. And then Pooh, who had been frowning very hard for some minutes, said, "I make it 15. "What?" said Rabbit. 15. 15 what? Replied Rabbit. "Your family," said Pooh. "What about them?" Pooh rubbed his nose and said he thought Rabbit had been talking about his family. "Did I?" said Rabbit carelessly. "Yes, you said—" "Ah, never mind, Pooh," said Piglet impatiently. "The question is, what are we to do about Kanga?" "Oh, I see," said Pooh. "The best way," said Rabbit, "would be this. The best way would be to steal Baby Roo and hide him. And then when Kanga says, 'Where's Baby Roo?' we say, 'Aha!'" "Aha," said Pooh, practicing. "Aha, aha. Of course," he went on, "we could say 'aha,' even if we hadn't stolen Baby Roo." "Pooh," said Rabbit kindly, "you haven't any brain." "I know," said Pooh humbly. "We say 'aha' so that Kanga knows that we know where Baby Roo is. 'Aha' means, we'll tell you where Baby Roo is if you promise to go away from the forest and never come back. Now, don't talk while I think." Pooh went into a corner and tried saying 'aha' in that sort of voice. Sometimes it seemed to him that it didn't mean what Rabbit said, and sometimes it seemed to him that it didn't. "I suppose it's just practice," he thought. "I wonder if Kanga will have to practice too, just to understand." "There's just one thing," said Piglet, fidgeting a bit. "I was talking to Christopher Robin, and he said that Kanga was generally regarded as one of the fiercer animals. I am not frightened of fiercer animals. If one of the fiercer animals is deprived of its young, it becomes as fierce as two of the fiercer animals, in which case, 'aha' is perhaps a foolish thing to say." "Piglet," said Rabbit, taking out a pencil and licking the end of it, "you haven't any pluck." "It is hard to be brave," said Piglet, sniffing slightly, "when you're only a very small animal." Rabbit, who had begun to write very busily, looked up and said, "It is because you are a very small animal that you will be useful in the adventure before us." Piglet was so excited at the idea of being useful that he forgot to be frightened anymore, and when Rabbit went on to say that Kangas were only fiercer during the winter months, being at other times of an affectionate disposition, he could hardly sit still. He was so eager to begin being useful at once. "What about me?" said Pooh sadly. "I suppose I shan't be useful." "Never mind, Pooh," said Piglet comfortingly. "Another time, perhaps." "Without Pooh," said Rabbit solemnly as he sharpened his pencil, "the adventure would be impossible." "Oh," said Piglet, and tried not to look disappointed. But Pooh went into the corner of the room and said proudly to himself, "Impossible without me, that sort of bear." "Now listen, all of you," said Rabbit when he had finished writing, and Pooh and Piglet sat listening very eagerly with their mouths open. This is what Rabbit read out loud. "Plan to capture Baby Roo. General remarks. Kanga runs faster than any of us, even me. 2. More general remarks. Kanga never takes her eye off Baby Roo, except when he's safely buttoned up in her pocket. 3. Therefore, if we are to capture Baby Roo, we must get a long start, because Kanga runs faster than any of us, even me. See 1 in parentheses. Number 4. A thought. If Roo had jumped out of Kanga's pocket and Piglet had jumped in, Kanga wouldn't know the difference because Piglet is a very small animal. Number 5. Like Roo. Number 6. But Kanga would have to be looking the other way first, so as not to see Piglet jumping in. Number 7. See number 2. Number 8. Another thought. What if Pooh was talking to her very excitedly? She might look the other way for a moment. Number 9. And then I could run away with Roo. Number 10. Quickly. Number 11. And Kanga wouldn't discover the difference until afterwards. Well, Rabbit read this out proudly, and for a little while after he had read it, nobody said anything. Then Piglet, who had been opening and shutting his mouth without making any noise, managed to say very huskily, "And afterwards?" "What do you mean?" said Rabbit. "When Kanga does discover the difference," said Piglet, "then we all say, 'Aha.'" "All 3 of us?" said Piglet. "Yes." "Oh. Why, what's the trouble, Piglet?" "Nothing," said Piglet. "As long as we all 3 say it. As long as we all 3 say it," said Piglet. "I don't mind," he said. "But I shouldn't care to say 'aha' by myself. It wouldn't sound nearly so well. By the way," he said, "you're quite sure about what you said about the winter months?" "The winter months," replied Rabbit. "Yes, only being fierce in the winter months," said Piglet. "Oh, yes, that's all right. Well, Pooh, you see what you have to do?" "No," said Pooh Bear, "not yet," he said. "What do I do?" "Well, you just have to talk very hard to Kanga, so as long as she doesn't notice anything." "Oh, about what?" said Pooh. "Anything you like," replied Rabbit. "You mean like telling her a little bit of poetry or something?" "That's it," said Rabbit. "Splendid. Now come along." So they all went out to look for Kanga. Kanga and Roo were spending a quiet afternoon in a sandy part of the forest. Baby Roo was practicing very small jumps in the sand and falling down mouse holes and climbing out of them. And Kanga was fidgeting about and saying, "Just one more jump, dear, and then we must go home." And at that moment, who should come stumping up the hill but Pooh. "Good afternoon, Kanga." "Good afternoon, Pooh." "Look at me jumping," squeaked Roo, and fell into another mouse hole. "Hello, Roo, my little fellow." "We were just going home," said Kanga. "Good afternoon, Rabbit." "Good afternoon, Piglet." Rabbit and Piglet, who had now come up from the other side of the hill, said, "Good afternoon," and "Hello, Roo." And Roo asked them to look at him jumping. So they stayed and looked. And Kanga looked too. "Oh, Kanga," said Pooh, after Rabbit had winked at him twice. "I don't know if you're interested in poetry at all." "Hardly at all," said Kanga. "Oh," said Pooh. "Roo, dear, just one more jump, and then we must go home." There was a short silence while Roo fell down another mouse hole. "Go on," said Rabbit in a loud whisper behind his paw. "Talking of poetry," said Pooh, "I made up a little piece as I was coming along. It went like this, now let me see." "Fancy," said Kanga. "Now, Roo, dear, you'll like this piece of poetry," said Rabbit. "You'll love it," said Piglet. "You must listen very carefully," said Rabbit. "So as not to miss any of it," said Piglet. "Oh, yes," said Kanga, but she still looked at Baby Roo. "How did it go, Pooh?" said Rabbit, who gave a little cough and began. Lines written by a bear of little brain. "On Monday, when the sun is hot, I wonder to myself a lot. Now it is true, or is it not, that what is which and which is what? On Tuesday, when it hails and snows, the feeling of me grows and grows, that hardly anybody knows. If those are these and these are those. On Wednesday, when the sky is blue, and I have nothing else to do, I sometimes wonder if it's true that who is what and what is who. On Thursday, when it starts to freeze and whole frost twinkles on the trees, how readily one sees that these are those, but those are these. On Friday, yes, it is, isn't it? Said Kanga, not one waiting to hear what happened on Friday. Just one more jump, Roo dear, and then we really must be going. Rabbit gave Pooh a hurrying up sort of nudge. Talking of poetry, said Pooh quickly, have you ever noticed that tree right over there? Where? Said Kanga. Now, Roo, right over there, said Pooh, pointing behind Kanga's back. No, said Kanga. Now jump in, Roo dear, and we'll go home. You ought to look at that tree right over there, said Rabbit. Shall I lift you in, Roo? And he picked up Roo with his paws. I can see a bird in it from here, said Pooh. Or is it a fish? You ought to see that bird from here, said Rabbit. Unless it is a fish. It isn't a fish, it's a bird, said Piglet. So it is, said Rabbit. It is a starling or a blackbird, said Pooh. That's the whole question, said Rabbit. Is it a blackbird or a starling? And then at last Kanga did turn her head to look, and the moment that her head was turned, Rabbit said in a loud voice, In you go, Roo, and in jumped Piglet into Kanga's pocket, and off scampered Rabbit, Roo in his paws, as fast as he could. Why, where's Rabbit? Said Kanga, turning around again. Are you all right, Roo dear? Piglet made a squeaky Roo noise from the bottom of Kanga's pocket. Rabbit had to go away, said Pooh. I think he thought of something he had to go and see suddenly. And Piglet? Asked Kanga. I think Piglet thought of something at the same time, suddenly. Well, we must be getting home, said Kanga. Goodbye, Pooh. And in 3 large hops, she was gone. Who looked after her as she went? I wish I could jump like that, he thought. Some can and some can't. That's how it is. There are moments when Piglet wished that Kanga couldn't. Often, when he had a long walk home through the forest, he had wished that he were a bird. But now he thought jerkily to himself at the bottom of Kanga's pocket. If this is flying, I shall never really take to it. And as he went up in the air, he said, ooh. And when he came down, he said, ow. And he was saying, ooh, ow, ooh, ow, ooh, ow, all the way to Kanga's home. Of course, as soon as Kanga unbuttoned her pocket, she saw what had happened. Just for a moment, she thought she was frightened. Then she knew she wasn't, for she felt quite sure that Christopher Robin would never let any harm happen to Roo. So she said to herself, if they are having a joke with me, then I will have a joke with them. Now then, Roo dear, she said as she took Piglet out of her pocket. Bedtime. Aha, said Piglet, as well as he could after his terrifying journey. But it wasn't a very good aha. And Kanga didn't seem to understand what it meant. Bath first, said Kanga in a cheerful voice. Aha, said Piglet again, looking around anxiously for the others. The others weren't there. Rabbit was playing with Baby Roo in his own house, and feeling more fond of him every minute. And Pooh, who had decided to be a Kanga, was still at the sandy place at the top of the forest practicing jumps. I am not at all sure, said Kanga in a thoughtful voice, that it wouldn't be a good idea to have a cold bath this evening. Would you like that, Roo dear? Piglet, who had never really been fond of baths, shuddered a long, indigent shudder and said in as brave a voice as he could, Kanga, I see the time has come to speak plainly. Funny little Roo, said Kanga, as she got the bath water ready. I'm not Roo, said Piglet loudly. I am Piglet. Yes, yes, dear, said Kanga smoothly, and imitating Piglet's voice too. So clever of him, she went on, and she took a large bar of yellow soap out of the cupboard. What will he be doing next? Can't you see? Shouted Piglet. Haven't you got eyes? Look at me. I am looking rude, dear, said Kanga rather severely. And you know what I told you yesterday about making faces. If you go on making faces like Piglet's, you will grow up to look like Piglet. And then think of how sorry you would be. Now then, into the bath, and don't let me have to speak to you about it again. Before he knew where he was, Piglet was in the bath, and Kanga was scrubbing him firmly with a large, lathery funnel. Ow, cried Piglet. Let me out. I'm Piglet. Don't open your mouth, dear, or the soap goes in, said Kanga. There. What did I tell you? You did it on purpose, sputtered Piglet, as soon as he could speak again. Then he accidentally had another mouthful of lathery flannel. That's right, dear. Don't say anything, said Kanga in another minute. And in another minute, Piglet was out of the bath, being rubbed dry with a towel. Now, said Kanga, there's your medicine and then bed. What medicine? Said Piglet. To make you grow big and strong. Dear, so you don't want to grow up small and weak like Piglet, do you? Well then, at that moment there was a knock at the door. Come in, said Kanga, and in came Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin, Christopher Robin, cried Piglet. Tell Kanga who I am. She keeps saying I'm Roo. I'm not Roo, am I? Christopher Robin looked at him carefully and shook his head. You can't be Roo, he said, because I've seen Roo playing in Rabbit's house. Well, said Kanga, fancy that. Fancy my making a mistake like that. There you are, said Piglet. I told you I'm Piglet. Christopher Robin shook his head again. Oh, you're not Piglet, he said. I know Piglet well, and he's quite a different color. Piglet began to say that this was because he just had a bath. And then he thought that perhaps he wouldn't say that, and he opened his mouth to say something else. Kanga slipped the medicine spoon in, and then patted him on the back, and told him that it was really quite nice taste when you got used to it. I knew it wasn't Piglet, said Kanga. I wonder who it could be. Perhaps it is some relation of Pooh, said Christopher Robin. What about a nephew or an uncle or something? Kanga agreed that this was probably what it was, and said that they would have to call it by some name. I shall call it Pootle, said Christopher Robin. Henry Pootle for short. And just when it was decided, Henry Pootle wiggled out of Kanga's arms and jumped to the ground. To his great joy, Christopher Robin had left the door open. Never had Henry Pootle Piglet run so fast as he ran then, and he didn't stop running until he had got quite close to his house. But then he was 100 yards away. He stopped running and rolled the rest of the way home to get his own nice comfortable color again. So Kanga and Roo stayed in the forest, and every Tuesday Roo spent the day with his great friend Rabbit, and every Tuesday Kanga spent the day with her great friend Pooh, teaching him to jump. And every Tuesday Piglet spent the day with his great friend Christopher Robin, so they were all happy again. Oh, okay, that's the end of chapter 7. I see we also are on an ad break, so we will take a couple minutes to chill, get some water and such. So much Roo, there is so much Roo. I thought the timing with the ad worked out pretty well because I only had like a couple sentences left. It's why I decided just to finish off the chapter. so much for Roo. Was probably my favorite character. For me, it was definitely Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear's always been my favorite. But it's also interesting because I know the last chapter story when I was younger. Like I've seen the animated version, and I'm pretty sure Tigger plays a part in it. But Tigger doesn't exist in this book. Because he was a character created later on. But we also learning some deep Pooh lore here. Some character names and other things that I don't remember when I was younger. We'll be, after the ad break is over in about a minute or so, we'll begin chapter 8 on our way to the end. Pooh lore is deep. Who knows? It could be like that iceberg meme where it's like the deeper you go, the more there is to it. I'm sure there's like a Pooh Bear one. Just like the Garfield one. There's a lot of wild Garfield stuff out there. The rain. It's nice having like the rain in the background for this. I am deciding what music to pick though for when we get to do My Immortal next. Maybe I should just do some sort of like classical music for it. Is kind of what I'm vibing. That's kind of how I'm planning to read My Immortal. Is like it's a piece of classical like literature. So we'll see. I'm here for the Eurocamp vibe. Right, like the nice rain, kind of chill, and just relax kind of vibe. That's kind of what I wanted for these streams, regardless of like how busy it is or how many people show up, because I'll post the VODs for these afterwards on YouTube. I won't be able to for My Immortal, at least for Winnie-the-Pooh. They'll be up there for anyone who wants them. Oh, that last chapter for some reason really took out my throat. Let me just drink some more water and we'll begin. I still need to watch the last 4 episodes. Whoops. I mean, if you kind of remember what happens in the Mariku, then you should be okay. I need to double check what I have. I don't remember the order of watch, if it's just season 2 or if it's the mini stuff before. Like I think it's Heya Camp before season 2, so we might do that first. We'll see. Oh, you've never seen it? Oh, I was under the impression a lot of people in the chat had already seen them all before, so it was kind of like a rewatch. They're very cozy. Because they have their big final season camp kind of deal in episode 12. Or we can watch the spin-off. I have to check because I don't think I have season 3 yet for Eurocamp, so I need to double check what I have to be able to watch. But oops. Let's continue reading some more Pooh Bear. Chapter, oh, 1 second. So we'll just Demi and see if you need something quick. He apparently does not. Okay. I do think I have the episodes of Heya Camp. Heya Camp is more like a mini series though. Like the episodes are really short. But I'll double check after the stream. And then I'll know what we'll have for tomorrow. Alright, let us begin. Chapter 8, in which Christopher Robin leads an expedition to the North Pole. One fine day, Pooh had stumped up to the top of the forest to see if his friend Christopher Robin was interested in bears at all. At breakfast that morning, A simple meal of marmalade spread lightly over honeycomb or two. He had suddenly thought of a new song. It began like this: Sing ho for the life of a bear. When he had got this far as this, he stretched his head and thought to himself, "That's a very good start for a song. But what about the second line?" He tried singing ho 2 or 3 times, but it didn't seem to help. Perhaps it would be better, he thought, if I sang he for the life of a bear. So he sang it, but it wasn't. "Very well then," he said, "I shall sing the first line twice. Then perhaps if I sing it very quickly, I shall find myself singing the third and fourth lines before I have time to think of them. And then that will be a good song. Now then, sing ho for the life of a bear. Sing ho for the life of a bear. I don't much mind if it rains or snow, 'cause I've got a lot of honey on my nice new nose. I don't much care if it snows or thaws, 'cause I've got a lot of honey on my nice clean paws. Sing ho for a bear. Sing ho for a Pooh." And then I'll have a little something in an hour or two. He was so pleased with this song that he sang it all the way to the top of the forest. And if I go on singing it much longer, he thought, it will be time for a little something, and then the last line won't be true. So he turned it into a hum instead. Christopher Robin was sitting outside his door, putting on his big boots. As soon as he saw the big boots, Pooh knew that an adventure was going to happen, and he brushed the honey off his nose and with the back of his paw, and spruced himself up as well as he could, so as to look ready for anything. "Good morning, Christopher Robin," he called out. "Hello, Pooh Bear. I can't get this boot on." "That's bad," said Pooh. "Do you think you could very kindly lean against me? 'Cause I keep pulling so hard I fall over backwards." Pooh sat down and dug his feet into the ground and pushed hard against Christopher Robin's back. And Christopher Robin pushed hard against his, and pulled on his boot until he had got it on. "And that's that," said Pooh. "What do we do next?" "We are all going on an expedition," said Christopher Robin, as he got up and brushed himself. "Thank you, Pooh." "Going on an expedition?" said Pooh eagerly. "I don't think I've ever been on one of those. Where are you going on this expedition?" "Expedition, silly old bear. It's got an X in it." "Oh," said Pooh, "I know." But he didn't really. "We're going to discover the North Pole." "Oh," said Pooh again. "That is the North Pole?" he asked. "It's just a thing you discover," said Christopher Robin, carelessly, not being quite sure himself. "Oh, I see," said Pooh. "Are bears any good at discovering it?" "Of course they are, and Rabbit and Kanga and all of you. It's an expedition. That's what an expedition means. A long line of everybody. You'd better tell the others to get ready, while I see if my gun's all right, and we must bring provisions." "Bring what?" "Things to eat." "Oh," said Pooh happily. "I thought you said provisions. I'll go and tell them." And then he stumbled off. The first person he met was Rabbit. "Hello, Rabbit," he said. "Is that you?" "Let's pretend it isn't, and see what happens." "I've got a message for you," said Pooh. "I'll give it to him." "We're all going on an expedition with Christopher Robin." What is it when we're on it?" "A sort of boat, I think," said Pooh. "Oh, that sort." "Yes, and we're going to discover a pole or something. Or was it a mole? Anyhow, we're going to discover it." We are, said Rabbit. Yes, and we've got to bring whole things to eat with us, in case we want to eat them. Now I'm going down to Piglet's. Tell Kanga, would you? He left Rabbit and hurried down to Piglet's house. The piglet was sitting on the ground at the door of his house, blowing happily at the dandelion, and wondering whether it would be this year, next year, sometime or never. He had just discovered that it would be never, and was trying to remember what it exactly was, and hoping it wasn't anything nice. When Pooh came up. Oh, Piglet, said Pooh excitedly. We're going on an expedition. All of us, with things to eat, to discover something. To discover what? Said Piglet anxiously. Oh, just something. Nothing fierce? Christopher Robin didn't say anything about fierce. He just said it had an X. It isn't their necks I mind, said Piglet earnestly. It's their teeth. But if Christopher Robin is coming, I don't mind anything. In a little while they were already at the top of the forest, and the expedition started. First came Christopher Robin and Rabbit, then Piglet and Pooh, then Kanga and Roo in her pocket, and Owl, then Eeyore, and at the end, in a long line, all Rabbit's friends and relations. I didn't ask them, explained Rabbit carelessly. They just came. They always do. They can march at the end, after Eeyore. What I said Eeyore, is that it's unsettling. I didn't want to come on this expo. What Pooh said. I only came to oblige. But here I am, and if I am the end of the expo, what we're talking about, then let me be the end. But if every time I want to sit down for a little rest, I have to brush away half a dozen of Rabbit's smaller friends and relations first, then this isn't an expo, whatever it is, at all. It's simply a confused noise. And that's what I say. I see what Eeyore means, said Owl. If you ask me. I'm not asking anybody, said Eeyore. I'm just telling everybody. We can go look for the North Pole. Or we can play. Here we go gathering nuts in May. In the end, part of an ant's nest. It's all the same to me. There was a shout from the top of the line. Come on, called Christopher Robin. Come on, called Pooh and Piglet. Come on, called Owl. We're starting, said Rabbit. I must go. And he hurried off to the front of the expedition of Christopher Robin. All right, said Eeyore. We're going. Only don't blame me. So off they went to discover the pole. As they walked, they chattered to each other of this and that, all except Pooh, who was making up a song. This is the first verse, he said to Piglet, and he was ready with it. First verse of what? Replied. My song, said Pooh. What song? Said Piglet. This one, said Pooh. Which one? Well, if you listen, Piglet, you'll hear it. How do you know I'm not listening? Said Piglet. Who couldn't answer that one, so he began to sing. They all went off to discover the pole, Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. It's a thing you discover, as I've been told, by Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. Eeyore, Christopher Robin and Pooh and Rabbit's relations all went too, and where the pole was none of them all knew. Sing hey for Owl and Rabbit all. Hush, said Christopher Robin, turning round to Pooh. We're just coming to a dangerous place. Hush, said Pooh, turning quickly to Piglet. Hush, said Piglet to Kanga. Hush, said Kanga to Owl, while Roo said hush several times himself, very quietly. Hush, said Owl to Eeyore. Hush, said Eeyore in a terrible voice to all of Rabbit's friends and relations. And hush, they all hastily said to each other all down the line until it got to the last one of all. And the last smallest friend and relation was so upset to find the whole expectation saying hush to him that he buried himself head down in the crack in the hole. Oh, crack in the ground, and stayed there for 2 days until the danger was over, and went home in a great hurry, and lived quietly with his aunt ever afterwards. His name was Alexander Beetle. They had come to a stream which twisted and tumbled between high rocky banks, and Christopher Robin saw at once how dangerous it was. It's just a place, he explained, for an ambush. What sort of bush? Whispered Pooh to Piglet. A gosh bush? My dear Pooh, said Owl in his superior way, don't you know what an ambush is? Owl, said Piglet, looking round him severely, whose whisper was a perfectly private whisper, and there was no need. An ambush, said Owl, is a sort of surprise, so a gorse bush sometimes, said Pooh. An ambush, as I was about to explain to Pooh, said Piglet, is a sort of surprise. If people jump out at you suddenly, that's an ambush, said Owl. It's an ambush, Pooh, when people jump at you suddenly, explained Piglet. Pooh, who knew what an ambush was, said the gorse bush had sprung at him suddenly one day when he fell off a tree, and he had taken 6 days to get all the prickles out of himself. We are not talking about gorse bushes, said Owl, a little crossly. I am, said Pooh. They were climbing very cautiously up the stream now, going from rock to rock, and after they had gone a little way, they came to a place where the banks widened out of each side, so that on each side of the water there was a level strip of grass, on which they could sit down and rest. As soon as he saw this, Christopher Robin called halt, and they all sat down and rested. I think, said Christopher Robin, that we ought to eat all our provisions now, so that we shan't have to carry so much to carry. Eat our what? Said Pooh. All that we've brought, said Piglet, getting to work. That's a good idea, said Pooh, as he got to work too. Have you all got something? Asked Christopher Robin with his mouth full. All except me, said Eeyore, as usual. He looked round at them in his melancholy way. I suppose none of you are sitting on a thistle by any chance. I believe I am, said Pooh. Ow. He got up and looked behind him. Yes, I was. I thought so. Thank you, Pooh. If you've quite finished with it. He moved across to Pooh's place and began to eat. I don't do them any good, you know, sitting on them. He went on as he looked up, munching. Takes all the life out of them. Remember that another time, all of you. A little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference. As soon as he finished his lunch, Christopher Robin whispered to Rabbit, and Rabbit said, Yes, yes, of course. They all walked a little way up the stream together. I didn't want the others to hear, said Christopher Robin. Quite so, said Rabbit, looking important. I wondered, it's only Rabbit. I suppose you don't know. What does the North Pole look like? Well, said Rabbit, stroking his whiskers, now you're asking me. I didn't know once. I did know once, only I've sort of forgotten, said Christopher Robin carelessly. It's a funny thing, said Rabbit, but I've sort of forgotten too, although I did know once. I suppose it's just a pole stuck in the ground. Sure to be a pole, said Rabbit, because of calling a pole, and if it's a pole, well, I should think it would be sticking in the ground, shouldn't you? Because there would be nowhere else to stick it. Yes, that's what I thought, said Christopher Robin. The only thing, said Rabbit, is where is it sticking? And that's what we're looking for, said Christopher Robin. They went back to the others. Piglet was lying on his back, sleeping peacefully. Roo was washing his face and paws in the stream, while Kanga explained to everybody proudly that this was the first time he had ever washed his face himself. An owl was telling Kanga about an interesting anecdote full of long words like expopedia and rhodonation, which Kanga wasn't listening. I don't hold with all this washing, grumbled Eeyore. This modern behind the ears nonsense. What do you think, Pooh? Well, said Pooh, I think. Well, we shall never know what Pooh thought, but there came a sudden squeak from Roo, a splash, and a loud cry of alarm from Kanga. So much for washing, said Eeyore. Roo's fallen in, cried Rabbit, and he and Christopher Robin came rushing down to the rescue. Look at me swimming, squeaked Roo from the middle of this pool, and was hurriedly down a waterfall into the next pool. Oh. Are you all right, Roo dear? Called Kanga anxiously. Yes, said Roo. Look at me swim. And down he went over the next waterfall into another pool. Everybody was doing something to help. Piglet, wide awake suddenly, was jumping up and down making, oh, I say, noises. Owl was explaining that in case of sudden and temporary immersion, the important thing to do was to keep head above water. Kanga was jumping along the bank saying, Are you sure you're all right, Roo dear? To which Roo, from whatever pool he was in at the moment, was answering, Look at me swimming. Eeyore had turned around and hung his tail over the first pool, into which Roo fell, and with his back to the accident was grumbling quietly to himself and saying, And Christopher Robin and Rabbit, all this washing, but catch on to my tail, little Roo, and you'll be all right. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit came hurtling past Eeyore and were calling out to the others in front of them. All right, Roo, I'm coming, called Christopher Robin. Get something across the stream. Lower down, some of you fellows, called Rabbit. But Pooh was getting something. 2 pools below Roo, he was standing with a long pole in his paws, and Kanga came up and took one end of it. And between them, they held it across the lower part of the pool. And Roo, still bubbling proudly, look at me swimming, drifted up against it and climbed out. Did you see me swimming? Squeaked Roo excitedly, while Kanga scolded him and rubbed him down. Pooh, did you see me swimming? That's called swimming. What I was doing. Rabbit, did you see what I was doing? Swimming. Hello, Piglet. I say, Piglet, what do you think I was doing? Swimming. Christopher Robin, did you see me? But Christopher Robin wasn't listening. He was looking at Pooh. Pooh, he said, where did you find that pole? Pooh looked at the pole in his hands. I just found it, he said. I thought it ought to be useful, and I just picked it up. Pooh, said Christopher Robin solemnly, the expedition is over. You have found the North Pole. Oh, said Pooh. Eeyore was sitting with his tail in the water, and they had all gone back to him. Tell Roo to be quick, somebody, he said. My tail's getting cold. I don't want to mention it, but I just mentioned it. I don't want to complain, but there it is. My tail's cold. Here I am, squeaked Roo. Oh, there you are. Did you see me swimming? Eeyore took his tail out of the water, swished it from side to side. As I expected, he said. Lost all feeling, numbed it. That's what it's done, numbed it. Well, as long as nobody minds, I suppose, it's all right. Poor old Eeyore. I'll dry it for you, said Christopher Robin, and he took out his handkerchief and rubbed it. Thank you, Christopher Robin. You're the only one who seems to understand about tails. They don't think. That's what's the matter with some of these others. They've no imagination. A tail isn't a tail to them. It's just a little bit extra at the back. Never mind, Eeyore, said Christopher Robin, rubbing his hardest. Is that better? It's feeling more like a tail, perhaps. It belongs again, if you know what I mean. Hello, Eeyore, said Pooh, coming up to them with his pole. Hello, Pooh. Thank you for asking, but I shall be able to use it again in a day or two. Use what? Said Pooh. What were we talking about? Said Eeyore. I wasn't talking about anything, said Pooh, looking puzzled. Ah, my mistake again. I thought you were saying how sorry you were about my tail being all numb. And could you do anything to help? No, said Pooh. That wasn't me, he said. Thought for a little and then suggested helpfully. Perhaps it was somebody else. Well, thank him for me when you see him. We looked anxiously at Christopher Robin. Who found the North Pole? Said Christopher Robin. Isn't that lovely? Who looked modestly down. Is that it? Said Eeyore. Yes, said Christopher Robin. Is that what we were looking for? Yes, said Pooh. Oh, said Eeyore. Well, anyhow, it didn't rain, he said. They stuck the pole in the ground, and Christopher Robin tied a message to it. North Pole. Discovered by Pooh. Found. Who found it? Then they all went home again, and I think, but I'm not quite sure, that Roo had a hot bath and went straight to bed. But Pooh went back to his own house, and feeling very proud of what he had done, had a little something to revive himself. Okay, that is the end of chapter 8. Oh, let's put this down. I'm also realizing that Cuckoo. By the way, hi, welcome in. I hope you have been well. This story is a lot harder to read than I thought it was going to be. I'm sure some of my pronunciation ain't the best either, but I is trying. They purposely put wrong spelling in there too because of how Pooh Bear is, so I'm trying to catch those as well. Yeah, it was spelled very weird. It was like Expo and then Po and then T-I-T-I-I-O-N, and I was like, eh? I almost didn't catch it the first time, and then I was like, oh, he's mispronouncing it because he doesn't remember. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Silly old bear. I did see Fat Nut. Thank you for the soba snack. Let me quickly go grab that for our little guy. He also, I guess, said hi during that reading. He probably saw someone outside. It's been very relaxing. I'm glad to hear it. I don't know if My Immortal will be as relaxing as this one, but you know, we can try. Oh, his little toys there. That's okay. Alright, let me transition it over. Soba! Where'd you go? Come here. You come for your treat. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi. You got Fat Nut gave you has a soap snack for you. Are you with the camera? Your legs are only in the come here. See? Oh, this better. Look how cute you are. Hop. Right, hop. Can you spin? Back to you. Down. Nose. Can you speak? Wait. Hop. Dance. Wait. Oh, he sneezed. Okay, here you go. Oh. Enjoy your treat, Soba. Put that back. Sometimes when he runs his nose into things a little too fast, like when I get him to put his nose between my fingers, he has to sneeze after. I'm always like, oh, poor guy. Alright, let me just Oh, thank you for the posture check. I'm like, I need to hydrate so much more than I thought when I'm reading this. Let me just, before we start the next chapter, I'm just going to quickly see how much more we have. I'm pretty sure there's 10 chapters, so I'm pretty sure I checked that. I'm just curious. Okay. I did start a little bit later today, but we are going to do our best to finish. Just because I don't want to really leave 1 or 2 chapters at the very end, like for another stream kind of thing. I think it's best just to finish it all today. So let me just drink some more water and we'll begin chapter 9. I have a whole new respect for people who read for audiobooks, man. This is more straining on my voice than talking for a few hours. No worries, Cuckoo. I understand it's quite late for a lot of you guys. So if any of you have to leave at any time, no worries. I do appreciate y'all coming by to say hi or just hang out for a little bit, since that's what this stream is for. The VODs will be, well, the first VOD's up. Oh my god, I did have a good night. Thank you. Thank you for joining, Cuckoo. I appreciate it. No, I'm not gonna. If I read it too fast, then it's not as relaxing. I'll be here, tuck a homie. Tuck all the homies in, guys. But just as I was saying, the first VOD, so chapters 1 to 5, is up on YouTube. And later this week, I'll be putting up this VOD as well. Just so everyone can have access to it, or if you guys want it at any point or time to listen to, it shall be up on my YouTube afterwards. Alright, let us not delay too long. Let me just readjust the mic because I had to move it for Soba. Let's go to chapter 9, in which Piglet is entirely surrounded by water. It rained and it rained and it rained. Piglet told himself that never in all his life, and he was, goodness knows how old, 3? Was it 4? Never had he seen so much rain. Days and days and days. If only, he thought, as he looked out the window, I had been in Pooh's house, or Christopher Robin's house, or Owl's house when it began to rain. Then I should have had company all this time, instead of being here all alone, with nothing to do except wonder when it would stop. And he imagined himself with Pooh, saying, "Did you ever see such rain, Pooh?" And Pooh saying, "Isn't it awful, Piglet?" And Piglet saying, "I wonder how it is over Christopher Robin's way." And Pooh saying, "I should think poor old Rabbit is about flooded out by this time." It would have been jolly to talk like this, and really, it wasn't much good having anything exciting like floods if you couldn't share them with somebody. It was rather exciting, the little dry ditches in which Piglet had nosed about so often had become streams. The little streams crossed, which he had splashed, were rivers, and the river, between those steep banks they had played so happily, had sprawled out on its own bed, and was taking up so much room everywhere, that Piglet was beginning to wonder whether it would come into his bed soon. "It's a little anxious," he said to himself, "to be a very small animal, entirely surrounded by water. Christopher Robin and Pooh could escape by climbing trees, and Kanga could escape by jumping, and Rabbit could escape by burrowing, and Owl could escape by flying, and Eeyore could escape by making a loud noise until rescued. And here I am, surrounded by water, and I can't do anything." It went on raining, and every day the water got a little higher, until now it was nearly up to Piglet's window, and he still hadn't done anything. "There's Pooh," he thought to himself. "Pooh hasn't much brain, but but he never comes to any harm. He does silly little things, and they turn out right. There's Owl. Owl hasn't exactly got a brain, but he knows things. He would know the right thing to do when surrounded by water. And there's Rabbit. He hasn't learned in books, but he can always think of a clever plan. And there's Kanga. She isn't clever. Kanga isn't, but she would be so anxious about Roo that she would do a good thing to do without thinking about it. And then there's Eeyore, and Eeyore is so miserable about that. He wouldn't mind about this, but I wondered, what would Christopher Robin do? Then suddenly he remembered a story in which Christopher Robin had told him about a man on a desert island who had written something in a bottle and thrown it into the sea. And Piglet thought that if he wrote something in a bottle and threw it in the water, perhaps somebody would come and rescue him. He left the window and began to search his house. All of that wasn't underwater, and at last he found a pencil and a small piece of paper, and a bottle with a cork in it. And he wrote on one side of the paper, "Help, Piglet," in parentheses, me. And on the other side, "It's me, Piglet. Help, help." Then he put the paper in the bottle, and he corked up the bottle as tightly as he could, and he leaned out the window, and as far as he could lean without falling in, he threw the bottle as far as he could throw. Splash! And in a little while it bobbed up and on the water, and he looked at it floating slowly away in the distance, until his eyes ached with looking, and sometimes he thought it was the bottle, and sometimes he thought it was just a ripple in the water which he was following. And then suddenly he knew that he would never see it again, and he had done all he could do to save himself. So now, he thought, somebody else will have to do something, and I hope they will do it soon, because if they don't, I shall have to swim, which I can't, so I hope they do it soon. And then he gave a very long sigh and said, "I wish Pooh were here. It's so much more friendly with two." When the rain began, Pooh was asleep. It rained, and it rained, and it rained, and he slept, and he slept, and he slept. He had a tiring day. You remember how he discovered the North Pole? Well, he was so proud of that, he asked Christopher Robin if there were any other poles, such as a bear of little brain might discover. "There's a South Pole," said Christopher Robin, "and I expect there is an East Pole and a West Pole, though people don't like talking about them." Pooh was very excited when he heard about this, and suggested that they should have an expedition to discover the East Pole. But Christopher Robin had thought of something else to do with Kanga, so Pooh went out to discover the East Pole by himself. Whether he discovered it or not, I forgot, but he was so tired when he got home that in the middle of his supper, after he had been eating for a little more than a half an hour, he fell asleep fast in his chair, and slept, and slept, and slept. Then suddenly he was dreaming. He was at the East Pole, and it was a very cold pole, with the coldest sort of snow and ice all over it. He had found a beehive to sleep in, but there wasn't room for his legs, so he had left them outside, and wild woozles, such an inhabit the East Pole, came and nibbled all the fur off his legs to make nests for their young. And the more they nibbled, the colder his legs got, until they suddenly woke up, and ow! And there he was, sitting in his chair with his feet in the water, and water all around him. He splashed to his door and looked out. "This is serious," said Pooh. "I must have an escape." So he took his largest pot of honey and escaped with it to a broad branch of his tree, went above the water, and then he climbed down again and escaped with another pot. And when the whole escape was finished, there was Pooh, sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him were 10 pots of honey. 2 days later, there was Pooh, sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him were 4 pots of honey. 3 days later, there was Pooh, sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there beside him was 1 pot of honey. 4 days later, there was Pooh, and it was on the morning of the 4th day that Piglet's bottle came floating past him. And with one loud cry of honey, Pooh plunged into the water, seized the bottle, and struggled back to his tree again. "Bother," said Pooh, as he opened it. "All that went for nothing. What's that bit of paper doing?" He took it out and looked at it. "It's a message," he said to himself. "That's what it is. And that letter is a P. And so is that. So this is that, and P means Pooh. So it's a very important message to me, and I can't read it. I must find Christopher Robin, or Owl, or Piglet, one of those clever readers who can read things, and they will tell me what the message means. Only I can't swim. Bother." Then he had an idea, and I think that for a bear of very little brain, it was a good idea. He said to himself, "If a bottle can float, then a jar can float. And if a jar floats, I can sit on the top of it if it's a very big jar." So he took the biggest jar and corked it up. "All boats have to have a name," he said, "so I shall call mine the Floating Bear." And with these words, he dropped his boat into the water and jumped in after it. For a little while, Pooh, the Floating Bear, were uncertain as to which of them was meant to be on top, but after trying 1 or 2 different positions, they settled down with the Floating Bear underneath and Pooh triumphantly astride it, paddling vigorously with his feet. Christopher Robin lived at the very top of the forest. It rained, and it rained, and it rained. The water couldn't come up to his house. It was rather jolly to look down into the valley and see the water all around him, but it rained so hard that he stayed indoors most of the time and thought about things. Every morning he went out with his umbrella and put a stick in the place where the water came up to, and the very next morning he went out and couldn't see his stick anymore, so he put another stick in the place where the water came up to. And then he walked home again, and each morning he had a shorter way to walk than he had the morning before. On the morning of the 5th day, he saw the water all around him, and knew that for the first time in his life, he was on a real island, which was very exciting. It was on this morning that Owl came flying over the water to say, "How do you do?" to his friend Christopher Robin. "I say, Owl," said Christopher Robin, "isn't this fun? I'm on an island. The atmospheric conditions have been very unfavorable lately," said Owl. "The what?" "It has been raining," explained Owl. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "it has. The flood level has reached an unprecedented height." "The who?" That's a lot of water about," explained Owl. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "there is. However, the prospects are rapidly becoming more favorable. At any moment—" "Have you seen Pooh?" said Christopher Robin. "No, not at the moment." "I hope he's all right," said Christopher Robin. "I've been wondering about him. I expect Piglets with him. Do you think they're all right, Owl?" "I expect so. You see, at any moment—" "Do go and see, Owl, because Pooh hasn't got very much brain, and he might do something silly, and I do love him so, Owl. Do you see, Owl?" "That's all right," said Owl. "I'll go back directly," and he flew off. In a little while he was back again. "Pooh isn't there," he said. "Not there? He has been there. He has been sitting on a branch of his tree outside his house with 9 pots of honey, but he isn't there now. Oh, Pooh, cried Christopher Robin. Where are you? Here I am, said a growly voice behind him. Who? And they rushed into each other's arm. How did you get here, Pooh? Asked Christopher Robin, when he was ready to talk again. On my boat, said Pooh proudly. I had a very important message sent to me in a bottle, and owing to have got some water in my eyes, I couldn't read it, so I brought it to you on my boat. With these proud words, he gave Christopher Robin the message. But it's from Piglet, cried Christopher Robin when he read it. Isn't there anything about Pooh in it? Asked Bear, looking over his shoulder. Christopher Robin read the message aloud. Oh, are those P's piglets? I thought they were Pooh's. We must rescue him at once. I thought he was with you, Pooh. Owl, could you rescue him on your back? I don't think so, said Owl. After great thought, it is doubtful if the necessary dorsal muscles. Then I would like you to fly to him at once and say that the rescue is coming. And Pooh, and I think a rescue to come up with as quick as we can. Oh, don't talk, Owl. Go on quick. And still thinking of something to say, Owl flew off. Now then, Pooh, said Christopher Robin, where's your boat? I ought to say, explained Pooh as they walked down the shore of the island, that it isn't just an ordinary sort of boat. Sometimes it's a boat, and sometimes it's more of an accident. It all depends. Depends on what? Asked Christopher Robin. On whether I'm on the top or underneath, replied Pooh. Oh, where is it? There, said Pooh, pointing proudly to the floating bear. It wasn't what Christopher Robin expected, and the more he looked at it, the more he thought what a brave and clever bear he was. And the more Christopher Robin thought of this, the more Pooh looked modestly down his nose and tried to pretend he wasn't. But it's too small for two of us, said Christopher Robin sadly. 3 of us with Piglet. And that makes it smaller still. Oh, Pooh, what shall we do? And then this bear, Pooh Bear, Winnie-the-Pooh, F.O.P., friend of Piglets, R.C., Rabbit's companion, P.D., Pole discoverer, E.C., T.F., Eeyore's comforter and tail finder. In fact, Pooh himself said something so clever that Christopher Robin could only look at him with mouth open and eyes staring, wondering if this was really the bear of very little brain, who he had known and loved so long. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. For suddenly Christopher Robin saw that they might. He opened his umbrella and put it point downwards in the water. It floated but wobbled. Pooh got in, but he was beginning to say that it was all right now when he found that it wasn't. So after a short drink, which he didn't really want, he waddled back to Christopher Robin, and they both got in together, and it wobbled no longer. I shall call this boat the Brain of Pooh, said Christopher Robin, and the Brain of Pooh set forthwith in a south-westerly direction, revolving gracefully. You can imagine Piglet's joy when the last ship came in sight of him. In after years, he liked to think that he had been in very great danger during the terrible flood. The only danger he had really been in was in the last half-hour of his imprisonment, when Owl, who had just flown up, sat on a branch of his tree to comfort him, and told him a very long story about an ant who had once laid a seagull egg by mistake. And the story went on and on, rather like this sentence, until Piglet, who was listening out of his window without much hope, went to sleep quietly and naturally, slipping slowly out of the window towards the water until he was only hanging on by his toes, at which moment, luckily, a sudden loud squawk from Owl, which was really part of the story, being that his aunt said, woke the Piglet up, and gave him time to jerk himself back into safety. and said, "How interesting, and did she?" When, well, you can imagine his joy when he saw the good ship, the Brain of Pooh, coming over the sea to rescue him. And that is really the end of the story. And as I'm very tired after the last sentence, I shall stop there. Oh, okay, that is chapter 9. We only have one more chapter. It's not much longer. And then we'll be finished. I apologize, guys. I did see y'all come in, so I just decided to opt to reply with an emote. But hello, Aqua. If you're still here, I hope you're doing well. I think stream has been relatively cozy for everyone, at least I hope. And hello, Relics. Welcome in. I also hope you're doing well. Is that an emote? Oh, burb cheer. That's so cute. No, there's actually, that was the end of chapter 9. That's how it ended. There is actually one more chapter. It's not as long as the last one was, so I'm going to finish it off so we'll be done our reading of Winnie-the-Pooh, and then it's over. And also, of course, hello, Kovez. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for stopping in. I don't know why it went like that. But from what I understand from reading Winnie-the-Pooh, it's told like the parent of Christopher Robin is making these stories for Christopher Robin up. So I think that section is actually the parent replying. It's kind of the vibe, at least I get from it. Thank you for the hydrate, Relics. Reading is hard. This takes me back to almost like in like school when the teacher calls on you to read. I will say for when we do My Immortal though, I will allow interruptions because let's be real, it's not a very serious story. But for this one I didn't want to interrupt in case when people listen to this later on, I kind of just want something that goes straight through sort of deal at least. I did. My father owned an original edition of this book. So I grew up listening to the Winnie-the-Pooh stories, and it's why he's my favorite. It's my favorite Disney series, I guess. Out of all the series, like Winnie-the-Pooh and Pooh Bear is my favorite. But I also really like these original stories, and it's kind of nice because it's been so long. As I'm reading these, I can also think of the animated, like the cartoon edition is coming to mind, and I'm like, oh, that's why they did that and that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. But yeah, I wanted these VODs when they go up on YouTube to essentially be mostly just the chapters straight through, so people could skip through them if they really wanted to. Or listen to it straight through. There will still be the talking in them, but it also gives me the ability to easily edit stuff if I need to, if we want to clip these down at some point. I may have only heard these stories read to me and looked at the pictures. Yes, there actually is quite a few pictures in this book. There's a lot more text than I expected for a children's book. Because I haven't heard these since I was like really young. Because I can picture the pictures, but I don't remember any of the words. There is definitely a bunch of pictures though. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense there. It is a little weird that, because Tigger's not part of this, and I'm used to also Tigger being in it with the cartoon. So it's interesting to see kind of where you can kind of see where he fits in. Alright. Let's say you guys, and let's get into the last chapter of Winnie-the-Pooh by A.A. Milne. Thank you guys for hanging out for as long as y'all have, even if it's just lurking or just hanging, or just chatting, lurking, or whatever. I do appreciate y'all coming by. Since I've never done this kind of stream before, so it's very new to me. Chapter 10, in which Christopher Robin gives Pooh a party, and we say goodbye. One day, when the sun had come back over the forest, bringing with it the scent of May, and all the streams of the forest were twinkling happily to themselves, their own pretty shape again. And the little pools lay dreaming of the life they had seen and the big things they had done. And in the warmth of the quiet of the forest, the cuckoo was trying his voice carefully and seeing to see if he liked it. The wood pigeons were playing gently to themselves in their lazy comfort way, and it was the other fellow's fault, but it didn't matter much. On such a day as this, Christopher Robin whistled in a special way he had. An owl came flying out of the 100-acre wood to see what was wanted. "Owl," said Christopher Robin, "I'm going to give a party." "You are you?" said Owl. "And it's to be a special sort of party, because of what Pooh did. And he did what he did to save Piglet from the flood." "Oh, that's what it's for, is it?" said Owl. "Yes, so I will tell Pooh so will you tell Pooh as quickly as you can, and all the others, because it will be tomorrow." "Oh, it will it?" said Owl, still being as helpful as possible. "So will you go and tell them, Owl?" Owl tried to think of something very wise to say, but couldn't, so he flew off to tell the others, and the first person he told was Pooh. "Pooh," he said, "Christopher Robin is giving a party." "Oh," said Pooh, and then seeing that Owl expected him to say something else, he said, "Will there be those little cake things with pink sugar icing?" Owl felt that it was rather beneath him to talk about little cake things with pink sugar icing, so he told Pooh exactly what Christopher Robin had said, and flew off to ER. "A party? For me?" thought Pooh to himself. "How grand!" And he began to wonder if all the other animals would know it was a special Pooh party. And if Christopher Robin had told them about the floating bear and the brain of the Pooh, and all the wonderful ships he had invented and sailed on. And he began to think of how awful it would be if everybody had forgotten about it, and nobody quite knew what the party was for. And the more he thought like this, the more the party got muddled in his mind, like a dream when nothing goes right. And the dream began to sing itself over in his head until it became a sort of song. It was an anxious Pooh song. 3 cheers for Pooh. For who? For Pooh. Why, what did he do? I thought you knew. He saved his little friend from a wedding. 3 cheers for a bear. For where? For a bear. He couldn't swim, but he rescued him. He rescued who? Oh, listen, do. I'm talking of Pooh. Of who? Of Pooh. I'm sorry I keep forgetting. Well, Pooh was a bear of enormous brain. Just say it again. Of enormous brain. Of enormous what? Well, he ate a lot, and I don't know if he could swim or not, but he managed to float on a sort of boat. On a sort of what? Well, a sort of a pot. So now let's give him 3 hearty cheers. Witches. And I hope he'll be with us for years and years, and grow in health and wisdom and riches. 3 cheers for Pooh. For who? For Pooh. 3 cheers for a bear. For where? For bear. 3 cheers for the wonderful Winnie-the-Pooh. Just tell me, somebody, what did he do? While this was going on inside him, Owl was talking to Eeyore. Eeyore, said Owl. Owl, Christopher Robin is giving a party. Very interesting, said Eeyore. I suppose they will be sending me down the odd bits which got trotted on. Kind and thoughtful, not at all. Don't mention it. There is an invitation for you. What's that like? An invitation. Yes, I heard you. Who dropped it? This isn't anything to eat. It's asking you for the party tomorrow, said Owl. Eeyore shook his head slowly. You mean Piglet, the little fellow with the excited ears? That's Piglet. I'll tell him. No, no, said Owl, getting quite fussy. It's for you. Are you sure? Replied Eeyore. Of course I'm sure. Christopher Robin said, all of them. Tell all of them, said Owl. All except Eeyore, replied Eeyore. All of them, said Owl sulkingly. Ah, said Eeyore. A mistake, no doubt, but still, I shall come. Only don't blame me if it rains. But it didn't rain. Christopher Robin had made a long table out of some long pieces of wood. They all sat around it. Christopher Robin sat at one end, Pooh sat at the other, and between them on one side were Owl, Eeyore, and Piglet. And between them on the other side were Rabbit and Roo and Kanga. And all Rabbit's friends and relations spread themselves about on the grass and waited hopefully in case anybody spoke to them, or dropped anything, or asked them the time. It was the first party to which Roo had ever been, and he was very excited. As soon as ever they sat down and began to talk. Hello, Pooh, he squeaked. Hello, Roo, said Pooh. Roo jumped up and down in his seat for a little while and began again. Hello, Piglet, he squeaked. Piglet waved his paw at him, being a little too busy to say anything. Hello, Eeyore, said Roo. Eeyore nodded gloomily at him. It will rain soon. You see, if it doesn't, he said. Roo looked to see if it didn't, and it didn't. So he said, Hello, Owl. And Owl said, Hello, my little fellow, in a kindly way, and went on telling Christopher Robin about an accident which had nearly happened to a friend of his whom Christopher Robin didn't know. And Kanga said to Roo, Drink your milk first, dear, and talk afterwards. So Roo, who was drinking his milk, tried to say that he couldn't do both at once, and had to be patted on the back and dried for a very long time afterwards. When they had all nearly eaten enough, Christopher Robin banged on the table with his spoon, and everybody stopped talking and was very silent, except Roo, who was just finishing a loud attack of hiccups and trying to look as if it was one of Rabbit's relations. This party, said Christopher Robin, is a party because of what someone did, and we all know who it was. It is his party because of what he did. And I've got a present for him, and here it is. He then felt about a little, and whispered, Where is it? While he was looking, Eeyore coughed in an impressive way and began to speak. Friends, he said, including Audiments, it is a great pleasure, or perhaps I had better say it has been a great pleasure so far, to see you at my party. What I did was nothing. Any of you, except Rabbit and Owl and Kanga, would have done the same. Oh, and Pooh, my remarks do not, of course, apply to Piglet and Roo, because they are too small. Any of you would have done the same, but it just happened to be me. It was not, I need hardly say, of an idea of getting what Christopher Robin is looking for now. And he put his front leg to his mouth and said in a loud whisper, Try under the table. That I did what I did because I feel we should all do what we can do to help. I feel that we should all... Hup, said Roo accidentally. Roo, dear, said Kanga reproachfully. Was it me? Asked Roo, a little surprised. What's Eeyore talking about? Piglet whispered to Pooh. I don't know, said Pooh rather dolefully. I thought this was your party. I thought it was once, but I suppose it isn't, replied Pooh. I'd sooner it was yours than yours, said Piglet. So would I, said Pooh. Hup, said Roo again. As I was saying, said Eeyore loudly and sternly. As I was saying, when I was interrupted by various loud sounds, I feel that... Here it is, cried Christopher Robin excitedly. Pass it down to the silly old Pooh. It's for you. For Pooh, said Eeyore. Of course it is. The best bear in all the world. I might have known, said Eeyore. After all, one can't complain. I have my friends. Somebody spoke to me only yesterday, And it was last week or the week before that Rabbit bumped into me and said bother. The social round. Always something going on. Nobody was listening, for they were all saying, "Open it, Pooh. What is it, Pooh?" "I know what it is." "No, you don't," and other helpful remarks of this sort. And of course Pooh, opening it as quickly as ever he could, but without cutting the string, because you never know when a bit of string might be useful. At last it was undone. When Pooh saw what it was, he nearly fell down. He was so pleased. It was a special pencil case. There were pencils in it marked B for bear, and pencils marked HB for helpful bear, and pencils marked BB for brave bear. There was a knife for sharpening the pencils, and Indian rubber for rubbing out anything which you had spelt wrong, and a ruler for ruling lines, for the words to walk on, and inches marked on the ruler in case you wanted to know how many inches anything was, and blue pencils and red pencils and green pencils for saying special things in blue and red and green. And all these lovely things were in little pockets of their own in a special case which shut with a click when you clicked it. They were all for Pooh. "Oh," said Pooh. "Oh, Pooh," said everybody else except Eeyore. "Thank you," growled Pooh. But Eeyore was saying to himself, "This writing business, pencils and whatnot, overrated if you ask me. Silly stuff, nothing in it." Later on, when they had all said goodbye and thank you to Christopher Robin, Pooh and Piglet walked home thoughtfully together in the golden evening, and for a long time they were silent. "When you wake up in the morning, Pooh," said Piglet at last, "what's the first thing you say to yourself?" "What's for breakfast?" said Pooh. "What do you say, Piglet?" "I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today," said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. "It's the same thing," he said. "And what did happen?" asked Christopher Robin. "When?" I replied. "Next morning." "I don't know," I said. "Could you think and tell me and Pooh sometime?" replied Christopher Robin. "If you wanted it very much." "Who does?" said Christopher Robin. He gave a deep sigh, picking his bear up by the leg, and walked off to the door, trailing Winnie-the-Pooh behind him. At the door he turned and said, "Coming to see me have my bath?" "I might," I said. "Was Pooh's pencil case any better than mine?" "It was just about the same," I said. He nodded and went out, and in a moment I heard Winnie-the-Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him. And that's the end of Winnie-the-Pooh. Or I guess the end of the book for the first book of Winnie-the-Pooh. Why are you putting the fiery "this is fine" emoji, Riku? I hope you guys enjoyed. I do know I went a little bit longer than I usually do. But I also started a little later, so. You're not worried. Why would you be worried? Yes, HB stands for Happy Bear Pencils, guys. That's exactly what it stands for. We've been lied to this whole time. They are pretty cute. They're also really silly, right? Like, you can look back and think about them and you're like, this bear, I tell you, so silly. I know I was like summarizing these the stories in these books last week. My boyfriend actually, I was reading to chat Winnie-the-Pooh, and there's this one story where Pooh gets he eats a little too much honey, and then he can't get out of Rabbit's house, so then they make him into a towel rack, and he has to stay there for a week. And that's one of the stories. But in the animated series, I know Rabbit draws a face on his butt too, so it's kind of cute. But I hope you guys did enjoy. I You remember the face on his... I think that's a GIF somewhere, honestly. I definitely know a lot of people have seen that image because I always thought that was really funny when I was a kid. It's one of my favorite episodes for sure. But it's interesting to see like the original versions of these stories and how they eventually became the adapted ones for the cartoon and such. And their own little take on them. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed my reading of Winnie-the-Pooh as one of the subathon rewards. The next reading stream we'll have, we will be starting My Immortal to all everyone's delights. I don't know how long that'll be. I know that one is less words than Winnie-the-Pooh though, so maybe it'll only be one stream, who knows. I feel like they can also make kids feel smart. Kids might know how to say expedition, or the Pooh Bear way, you know. Like, there's also message instead of message. I thought that was kind of cute. But I think it's a nice little, it's definitely a nice, wholesome little children's book. With a lot of big words in it, depending on how old kids are you're reading this to, potentially. Some of those words I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that in a long time. Like older words or like just bigger words in general. So it's why I'm like, I'm sorry if I butchered any of the pronunciation. I am not a professional reader, but I tried for this. Otherwise, this week, tomorrow is the watch along we have in the Prismaria Discord. We are continuing some more Euro Camp tomorrow. And then on Thursday, I'll be back with some more Xenosaga. We should be getting to a really good part of the story actually, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Anyways, we enjoyed the reading. I'm glad. This was a kind of fun little subathon reward. The book was a little bit longer than I remembered, but I enjoyed having the reading. For this stream though, we will be just ending it here. And I won't be raiding out to anyone, just to keep it kind of in the comfy, relaxing sort of thing. So if I don't see you guys around for the rest of the week, I hope you all have a good rest of your week. Take care. Get some good rest. Did I say rest? Whoops. Get some good rest. And hopefully I'll see you guys around this week or maybe next. Take care and get some good sleep, you guys. May we all be happy bears of very little brains. And tuck in all the homies. Alright, take care everyone. Bye-bye and good night.